Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Halifax International Security Forum in Nova Scotia, Canada, one of the world's leading gatherings of military, political, economic, cultural, and thought leaders from around the world. And we're honored to have with us General Jarmo Lindberg, who is the chief of Finland's defense forces. Sir, thanks very much for taking some time to meet with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Finland is a nation that's had both sometimes a very constructive relationship with Russia, sometimes a less constructive relationship with Russia. From a Finnish perspective, you know, as we've been hearing for the bulk of this conference, a lot of concerns voiced. We just heard from the Ukrainian foreign minister and a number of others about concerns about Russia's behavior, discussion of the Zapad exercises, and just Moscow's posture in general since the Ukraine invasion in 2014. As Finland's chief military commander, what do you see that Russia is doing that concerns Finland? And also, what are opportunities that you use for dialogue with the Russians as well?
Well, overall military activity in the vicinity of Finland has been growing for the last couple of years. And Russia, as we all know, has been very active in the SNAP exercises, larger exercises like Zapad this year. So obviously all the military activity and the high volume military activity concerns us, and we watch it and we draw our conclusions, and we have to be ready, and we have to have the capabilities and the high-end threshold capabilities in the Finnish defense forces. And also the Finnish political leadership has been keeping up the political dialogue with Russia all the time. Not in the military but I do have to say that we announced only a couple of weeks ago that we now have a hotline to Russia. So if something were to happen that would surprise us, now we are in a place where we can go and call them and ask that what's going on.
What are some of the capabilities that Russia has demonstrated that as a military commander you think that Finland has to respond to build kind of counter capabilities to them? What are some of the things Russia is doing that get your attention?
Well, they have been very active in a way that has gotten the attention of everybody in the Nordic countries, in the Baltic area, and also in Europe, as we all know. And that means that the readiness capabilities of all the defense forces, also the Finnish defense forces, we have been enhancing. So we have a better readiness now than we had a couple of years ago. Also, in Russia, there are new capabilities coming in for all the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, and all the neighboring countries like us. We are watching that what is going on, and then we have to figure out that what kind of military capabilities we need. So it's not just about the numbers. It is not just about how many men and women you have in the forces. It's about the capabilities and the high-end capabilities.
And what are some of those specific things? Is it, especially we saw in Zapad. I mean, I was recently in Norway and talked to the Norwegian leadership, and we visited the border in Kirkenes. And one of the things that was surprising was that everybody thought that the focus was going to be a Belarus focus, but that there was a lot of activity in the north. In fact, it shut down Kirkenes airport in terms of some of the electronic warfare, the electronic systems that the Russians were testing. Everybody said that there wasn't deliberate, but it was a side effect, certainly, of what some of those exercises were. What are some of the specific things? Is it on the electromagnetic spectrum? Is it on the electronic warfare side that worries you? Is it on the kinetic side that worry you? Or is it pretty much a little bit of everything?
Well, hybrid warfare now is the word, and somebody says that it has been beaten to death already. But I'd say that is in a way a good term. You just have to specify what you mean by hybrid warfare. It means the military capabilities, it means the numbers, it means the high-end capabilities, but then in addition to that, it is network warfare, it is cyber, it is information warfare, and that's what I said, and is the thing that people are worried about, and it is not the military that can respond to all of that. It is the whole society, and that means that you need comprehensive security We have had the comprehensive security concept in Finland, and I think that that is a good answer to hybrid warfare, where you may have economic pressure, may have information warfare, and kind of only a slice of the pizza is the military capability.
You talked about Nordic cooperation in general.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary thing where now there's a Finnish officer that sits in Stockholm, there's a Swedish officer that sits in Helsinki. Talk to us from a Nordic standpoint, all the kind of cooperation that's happening, and what the cooperative vision is. Say, where do you guys want to be 5 years from now when you look at what could be happening? Because Finland and Sweden are in a different category. They're not NATO countries. They're EU countries, but they're also nations that historically have had very fiercely independent, fiercely neutral status that they've tried to always enforce. Talk to us about some of the changes that are happening and where that cooperation is going to. Where do you want to see that cooperation, and where do you want to see the role Finland playing in that cooperative sphere?
Well, Nordefco, I would say, is an excellent forum for cooperation. If we didn't have it, we should invent it right now. But we have the structure, and we have good forums there to develop training, to develop exercises. We have had extremely good exercises. We're also looking at the common procurement. Economics of scale. We have a top 10 list, and our people from the procurement side go through the national procurement plans and compare them and see that, okay, is there something that we all Nordic countries could buy together and get the benefits from the economics of scale. Also with Sweden, and in addition to that, we do operational planning, and we have been mandated to do that by our both governments. Lately, what we have been discussing, and the ministers just signed, is, for example, the exchange of air picture. So we are now investigating ways how to exchange the air picture between the Nordic countries. We signed an MOU for using alternate air bases, so we can use an air base if the weather is bad or there's an emergency. We can go to another nation. We're looking ways how to ease up the bureaucracy on our borders so that we could move the military capabilities easier and faster across the borders. So I would say very logical, concrete, good things going on. Then the big questions in the future are, because Finland and Sweden are not part of a military alliance, and Denmark and Norway are, then what is there in this kind of a setting, how far we can go? But this is up to the politicians to set up us the goals and the limitations.
Talk to us about Aurora 17. That was a key exercise in Sweden's development. Normally, Sweden likes to defend itself, but this time was extraordinary because there were American troops that were there were Finnish troops that were there. Talk to us a little bit about that exercise, what it demonstrated, because there was a role to play. Sweden was playing host country support. So there were a lot of nations that came to Sweden for Sweden to be able to support them. As Finland's chief of defense, what did you find when, as part of that exercise, and why it was important?
Well, obviously it was extremely important for the Swedes. So 19,000 people in the exercise, and that was the biggest exercise in Sweden for a long time. And as you mentioned, several nations participating in the exercise also made it special. We Finns had some 300 troops in the exercise, Army, Navy, Air Force. Our Army troops were on the island of Gotland. We had our Hornet fighters on a road base, highway strip in southern Sweden. We had naval officers in the Swedish-Finnish Naval Task Group out there, so all services, good training. We got good training for the logistics to transport our troops to another nation, train with them, train in a multinational environment, get the benefits of interoperability, see how our troops work, how our equipment works. And I do have to say that also it was historical when for the first time, for example, we had our Hornet fighters on the blue side. meaning we were in the Swedish main exercise defending Sweden.
Which is an extraordinary step, I think, for anybody who knows about Scandinavian and Swedish defense in particular. Let me take you to the relationship with the United States. Finland and the United States have always had very warm relations. F-18 is a key part of the Finnish defense forces. Talk to us a little bit about the relationship with the United States, because each one of the countries in the region has been working to try to improve the relationship with Washington. Talk to us about how Finland and the United States are drawing closer together.
Well, when the Hornet deal was made in early 1992, well, that was a big shift and still has an effect, because a lot of Finnish military officers and government officials have been going back and forth to Washington D.C. now for more than 2 decades. So that is a stable ground for good cooperation. The statement of intent, which was signed last year, also kind of solidifies the things that we have been doing. There are no major new dramatic openings, but there's a good to-do list of things to do with the United States, and meaning the technological cooperation, research, exercise, training, and a long list. So for the defense forces, that then forms a good policy level background for military officers what to do with the United States. So I would say that it is well defined and very clear, and for a military man it is easy to execute what is written there.
Let me take you to modernization. The fighter force needs to be modernized, so there's a lot of global interest in that. You also want a naval modernization. Talk to us about the whole piece, from the precision weapons side, from the long-range strike side, to fighters, to ships. What are some of the systems and the capabilities you want for the future Finnish armed forces?
Well, where we are at the moment, we're in the final stages of the HM-158 JASSM procurement. And we have 2 jets in China Lake in California, and sometime in the near future we are going to do 2 live fires there in California, and then we will have the capability for the long range precision strike in Finland. At the moment, our focus is in army procurement. So there are weapon systems in the army where the life cycle is ending. And for example, what we are doing at the moment, we're replacing some of our howitzers with the K9 Thunder howitzer that we signed the procurement with South Korea, and we're buying 48 artillery pieces from Korea, and that's a very big capability improvement for the Army in the near future. The next in the line is Navy, and there are 6 vessels that are going out from the Navy, and we're replacing them with 4 multi-purpose corvettes. And the anticipated total cost of the procurement is around 1.2 billion euros. Fairly big procurement and strategic for the Finnish Navy. And last but not least, the latter part of next decade, then we need to replace the FA-18 Hornets. And we have had the request for information round already. And the competitors have been the F-35 Super Hornet, Rafale, Eurofighter, and Gripen. And we have analyzed the RFIs, and now we are fixing and improving our request for quotation, which is due to go out in April 2018, meaning that then the full competition is up and running, and we anticipate that we will do the selection of the fighter in 2021.
And do you have a sense on what are the baseline capabilities do you want? I mean, for example, is stealth something that Finland wants for the future?
It's we're looking for a multi-purpose fighter, air-to-air, air-to-ground capabilities, good sensor suite, and all of that. And then it'll be a full-up, open, multi-year competition evaluations in Finland, and finally then we see that what comes out of that.
And If you had a budgetary wish list, are you getting enough money that you want, or is that something that's a constant discussion that you're having with your treasury and your political leadership?
Well, the previous government cut 10% out of the defense budget, and the current government has been allocating us some procurement money, so we're getting some more procurement money. And the priority is, as I said, the Army, the latter part of this decade. And then the strategic programs are already defined in the defense report that was finalized this year. And as I mentioned, 1.2 billion euros is allocated to the Navy multipurpose corvettes, and between 7 to 10 billion euros are planned for the fighter procurement. And based on the RFI information that we have, we are pretty sure that with that amount of money, we're able to replace the full capability of the F-18 Hornet fighters.
And let me ask you one last question, and it's about innovation. Finland has always prided itself, as many Scandinavian countries, but Finland as well, in terms of being very innovative in using, whether it's commercial technologies for military application, vice versa. As you look at global technological trends, where do you think that even a small country like Finland can take advantage of some of these trends to get sort of a bigger bang for the buck? And how are you rethinking how to solve problems? You know, how much innovation and how much risk are you willing to take to potentially go after a potentially very innovative approach that's game changing when you're such a small country, but you're facing a country that's dozens of times your size?
I would say sensor capability is one thing, sensor technology to have better situational awareness. And if I had to say one thing where I think that we're going to see a radical change coming to the early next decade, and that is accessibility to space. So it is going to be a lot cheaper to have the small satellites and a lot of small satellites up there. And I might say that everybody and his brother are watching you in the future from the space. And if we are not in there with the others, then the others will be watching us, and we will be not watching the others. So I would say that the cheap, small space sensor capability is going to change radically in the early next decade.
So disinformation. Every one of the countries in the region at the hands of Russia has suffered this. The United States, every country in Europe has faced it. What are some of the keys to countering this sort of disinformation campaigns that are designed to be insidious and erode public support for their militaries and sow discord? What are the ways that some of the techniques that Finland is using to counter some of these Russian disruptive efforts?
Well, disinformation campaigns on the whole are obviously challenging, but then you have to figure out that are you going to do a counter disinformation campaign? So are you going to do a propaganda campaign where you exchange somebody else's lies to your own lies? And I would say that is extremely short-sighted. And the only thing which is kind of a long-term solution is that you have to bring out the truth in a way that it erodes the story and discredits the story as soon as possible that the other ones are putting out. And then you will be on stable ground. But if you go into the game, in the lying game, then actually you will be getting muddy the same way as the others are. And I would say that that's a very short-sighted solution to those challenges.
And last question, what's the key, in your view, to deterring Russia?
Well, that is something that in a deliberate way, I'm just saying that the overall environment in Finland, the military environment has changed. So Russia has been active, and all our neighbors are active. When we look at the compass rose, everybody is doing more militarily 360 around us. And we in Finland have to be awake. We have to have our early warning capabilities, our intel capabilities up and ready. And we have improved the readiness of the Finnish defense forces, and we keep on improving the readiness. So that is the Finnish answer to the new changed military environment around us.
General, thanks very much. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.